The Bengals look for win number one as the Bills try to stay undefeated. Hey everyone, welcome to NFL Breakdown. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Toronto Sun NFL writer Dan Bilicki and Postmedia sports writer Don Brennan, who each week will be giving out picks against the spread, which you can find on TorontoSun.com. But here they will each pick two of their favorite games of the week and tell you who they like to cover. And last week, Dan, you went 2-0 while Don went 1-1. So on the season, Don now 4-2, while Dan is back to 500 at 3-3. And we'll start our week 4 picks with Don and the 0-3 Bengals, who are reeling after a stunning loss to Washington on Monday night. But they're once again favored, this time by 4 points on the road against a Carolina team that beat up on the Raiders with Andy Dalton at quarterback. And the Bengals, Don, finally get on the board.
Well, do you guys remember what you did on your 32nd birthdays, or have you even had them yet? I said, Andy Dalton remembers what he did when he turned 32. It was October the 29th, 2019, 2 days after the Bengals had fallen to 0-8, and Dalton, in his 9th season as their quarterback, was called into Coach Zach Taylor's office and told he was being benched for somebody named Ryan Finley. Yeah, Ryan Finley. Remember him, eh, Dan? Yeah, surprisingly, Finley turned out to be no good, and after 3 games, Dalton was reinstated to play the final 5 in what turned out to be his last season with the Bengals. So isn't it kind of neat? Now he has his chance to come back and bury the 2024 Bengals and Taylor 1 week after taking the Panthers to their first win since the start of last season. The Red Rifle was very good in the 36-22 victory over the Raiders, completing 70% of his passes, 319 yards and 3 touchdowns, and his old team's defense is a mess. But come on, the Panthers' defense is worse, and despite the fact his protection has been weak, Joe Burrow is going to shred the Panthers. He's got T. Higgins now with a game under his belt, Jamar Chase coming off a 118-yard, 2-touchdown performance, and extreme desperation on the side. The Bengals, who started 0-2 last season and made it to the AFC Championship game, won't be bouncing out of an 0-4 hole earlier this year. So I hate them for knocking me out of 2 survivor pools, but I'm going to go back to them this week. I like Cincy to cover in a shootout.
Okay, they have to win at some point, and maybe this is the week they can get it done. Dan, the 1-2 Raiders, we just talked about them hosting the 1-2 Browns as 1.5-point home favorites. 2 teams licking their wounds right now. Who do you like in this one?
Now, Raiders head coach went on a fiery rant after that hugely disappointing loss to the Panthers last week, saying that some of the players were making business decisions out there. Now it's time that he needs to get down to business and get back in the win column. Now, the Browns come to Vegas with an offensive line that is beyond banged up, and star pass rusher Myles Garrett is hobbled with a couple feet injuries. Deshaun Watson looks like he's been spending more time working on his legal defenses than scouting opposing defenses. Now, here's a fun fact. If you Google the Deshaun Watson contract, the first thing that comes up is a question asked if the Browns can get out of it. It's not often you can say that Gardner Minshew is the better starting quarterback in the matchup, but that's the case here. So I'll back the silver and black.
All right. Like the choice there. I had the Browns in my own survivor pool last week, so I have regrets about that one. Don, it's an NFC South matchup in Atlanta where the 1-2 Falcons host the 2-1 Saints. Atlanta 2.5-point home favorites. How do you see this one going?
Well, remember I told you guys I was going to the Caesar Superdome last week? Well, it was a really disappointing experience, I'll tell you that. I love the Who-Dats and their Get Crunk theme song, and the Chicken Street tacos were outstanding. And I didn't even mind paying $15 for a Miller Lite. But the Saints offense, boy, man, that was frustrating, especially after I expected Derek Carr to attack a suspect Eagles defense and become the 4th team since 1970 to score 125 points in its first 3 games. Well, the New Orleans defense was forcing Jalen Hurts and the Eagles into 4 turnovers, but Carr spent the first 3 quarters handing the ball off to Alvin Kamara and ignoring Chris Olave and directing the Saints to exactly 0 points. It was an exciting 4th quarter, but the 15-12 loss to an unimpressive Philly team convinced me the Saints will not be the surprise of 2024 I thought they might be. The Falcons are 0-2 at home, but in last week's 22-17 loss to the Chiefs, the defense did a decent job on Patrick Mahomes, limiting him to 217 passing yards. Had they done a better job containing Rashee Rice, they might have even upset the champs. But, Kirk Cousins looks like he's getting more comfortable with that previously ruptured Achilles, and he's already done what Carr couldn't when he beat the Eagles in week 2. I like him to continue building the chemistry with Drake London and Bijan Robinson to have at least one big run, like Saquon Barkley's 65-yard touchdown last week. I like the Falcons to cover in this one.
Finally, Dan, Josh Allen and the Bills improved to 3-0 with a convincing 47-10 win over the Jacksonville Jaguars on Monday. They're now 2.5-point road underdogs heading to 1-2 Baltimore. Are you backing the Bills in this one?
It's a battle between last year's MVP and then the co-favorite to win it this year. Both Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen have been fantastic this season, but it's Allen's Bills that have been perhaps the best all-around team in the NFL. Sometimes I might balk at a slight rest disadvantage because they played on Monday night. They were resting most of their key players at the end of that blowout. That's the Sunday night kickoff helps on that front too. But the main difference we're looking at is that the Bills' defense should have a big advantage, with the Ravens allowing the league worst 291 passing yards per game. That's 36 yards worse per game than the 31st ranked Commanders. Future Hall of Fame kicker Justin Tucker hasn't been reliable this season. He's working through some mechanical issues, they say. And in a game with this short of a line, that's not as striking as the hosts. I'll take the Bills with a couple of points, and I think it's going to be a great game.
All right, it's been a wild start to the NFL season so far. We'll see what's in store in week number 4. As always, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. For Don Brennan and Dan Bilicki, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next week.